Hi there IELTS candidates, this is Tony from succeedinielts.com, and in this video I'm going to talk about a student's answer to this question with particular reference to task response. So the question is, some people think that cultural traditions will be destroyed when they are used as money-making attractions aimed at tourists. Others believe it is the only way to save these traditions. Discuss both views and give your opinion. Now, I think this is a very difficult question for reasons I will discuss later. So let's have a look at the answer. Introduction. Opinions differ as to whether tourism facilitates or deteriorates cultures and customs. While to a certain extent tourism somehow brings traditions to a wider range of audience, I would argue that it causes more harm than good. Okay, so we've got a pretty high level candidate. However, he's taken some risks with the vocab. Deteriorates cultures. Now, deteriorate is a non-transitive verb. In other words, it should not have an object. If you want to use it like this, I would say causes a deterioration in. In other words, use the noun. While to a certain extent tourism somehow, now this is overcautious. We've got to a certain extent, which is cautious language, and somehow is even more cautious and vague. Brings traditions to a wider audience. I would argue that it causes more harm than good. So a couple of problems with the vocab. Oh, deteriorate. I would say, I would use the word from the question, destroy. Destroy. Destroys cultures. But there is a bigger problem, namely that he has not accurately characterized the question. So the question about it damaging cultures, yeah, he's covered that. But the important part of the question, the second question, is this word here, only. Others believe it is the only way to save these traditions. Well, there's no reference to that in this introduction, so that's a worry. So main body one, mass tourism with huge investments diverted into development, advertising and propagation has made indigenous customs, several of which, very good, were formerly alien and unpopular, known to people around the world. So yeah, clearly we've got a guy who's capable of writing very good sentences. A couple of things. This should be promotion. I imagine that's what he means. Promoting tourism has made indigenous customs, several of which, yeah, fantastic, were formerly alien. Well, that's good. And unpopular. Well, that's not so good. Just because something is unknown does not mean it is unpopular. So the word should be unknown. And if you want to avoid unknown, comma known, you might say more widely known to people around the world, or perhaps recognized. Once, next sentence. That topic sentence is not addressing the second view from the question about it being the only way. Once a small local village that was formerly restricted to only tribal peoples. Now, people is normally non-countable, but in this case, if you're talking about different groups of tribal people, then that's correct. The Cong Chien carnival in the middle part of Vietnam has greatly emerged. Central Vietnam has greatly emerged to become a ubiquitous tourist trap. Well, we've got more risk-taking with the vocabulary. Ubiquitous means it's everywhere. So tourism could be everywhere or almost everywhere, but one particular festival certainly cannot be everywhere. Nevertheless, So there's some good vocab here. Influxes of Vietnamese and foreigners flocking. Very good vocab. Nevertheless, I believe such popularity is just superficial. A custom known by a lot of people does not necessarily mean it is a well-preserved one. Okay, so look, it's a nice paragraph with a clear central topic, but it doesn't address the question of whether tourism is the only way to save this tradition. So at the moment, as far as the examiner is concerned, he's going to be saying, well, it's a maximum of 5 for task response. Next paragraph. All too often, tourism brings in its wake, good, bland cultural uniformity, or even worse, cultural assimilation. Very good. So it's not quite the same as destroying, but that is addressed later. It is not rare to see tribal people, adults and children alike, get rid of their traditional attires for modern westernized ones worn by tourists. It is not rare, it is not unusual to see tribal people get rid of, now there's a better word, I would probably say abandon their traditional attire, singular might be better, for modern westernized ones worn by tourists. Many hotels, resorts and spas have been erected every year, encroaching on areas where there once were villages, altars and ritual meetings. Yeah, very good. I would probably not use the present perfect there. I think are erected every year, or have been erected without every year. Additionally, the disgusting hands of tourism moguls, this is a little bit more like political rhetoric, I suppose it's okay, have reached out to, I think reached even the remotest areas, tempting indigenous people to work for them with promises of higher salaries, plural, and a better life. As a consequence, the number of ethnic peoples has greatly shrunk in recent years, with many ethnic minorities being declared extinct. So he has addressed the first viewpoint. As for better ideas, well, look, this is a very, very difficult question, because I don't know that much about tourism. I'm not an expert in any way, and I can't think of any cultural traditions that have been destroyed that I could use as examples, and neither do I know any traditions that have been saved just by tourism. Now, if I were to think about my own country, our cultural traditions survive independently of tourism. We're talking about religious festivals, Christmas, Easter, things like Bonfire Night, where we celebrate the Houses of Parliament not being blown up. We've got football on Ash Wednesday, when they play on a 3-mile wide football pitch with no rules. All these things survive independently of tourism. They are neither destroyed by tourism, neither has tourism been the only reason for their survival. Now, it is not explicitly clear that the question is related to ethnic cultural traditions. I think it's fair enough that this candidate has addressed ethnic traditions, but it's not specifically about that. With regard to the second question, if you can think of another way of saving cultural traditions, then you can prove that the second view about tourism being the only way to save them is incorrect. So perhaps you could suggest that the government could fence off or make particular areas closed to tourism and protect the cultural traditions. And if you do that, then you have shown that tourism is not the only way to save them. So that would be a good idea. Yeah, so that's all I have to say about this question. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, leave a comment. I will be making lots more videos like this. Please check out my website. I've got some interesting material. I've got model answers for sale, and you can find out more about my marking service and about Skype lessons. So thank you for watching and be safe.